Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today I'm excited to join by Amir, a talented student learning ethical hacking and cybersecurity. As you know, ethical hacking is the practice of identifying and exploiting vulnerabilities in computer systems and networks with the permission of the owner to test, improve, or maintain the system's security. In our previous conversation, Amir expressed his interest in delving deeper into the fundamentals of ethical hacking, particularly in understanding MAC addresses, type of IP addresses, DHCP, IP spoofing, and MAC spoofing. These concepts are crucial for annoying aspiring to become an ethical hacker or simply wanting to enhance their cybersecurity knowledge. So today we will embark on a journey together to explore this essential topic and gain a deeper understanding of the intricacies of the ethical hacking domain. Amir, I'm eager to learn from your insight and share our knowledge with the audience. So, without further ado, let's dive into the MAC addresses, IP addresses, and the technique of IP spoofing and MAC spoofing on revealing the mysteries of ethical hacking and cybersecurity. Amir, let's start your lessons, and I'm waiting for your presentation. Let's go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Omid, and hello, everyone. And thanks for your time. Today, as you say, I want to speak about Mac, IP, and cyber attack on them. Okay. Just as in the real world, to be able to communicate with a person, we must first call her by name. Computers also need a name to call each other and communicate with each other. IP address is one of the prerequisites for connecting to the internet. Just as every citizen needs a card and national number to be recognized and receive citizenship services, every device needs an IP address to connect to the internet. If there weren't an IP address, we wouldn't be able to find out exactly which computer is our destination in the network. Since we all know that computers only understand numbers, this name must be in the form of a number. And the location of this name is in the Network Interface Card or NIC, because all the devices that connect to the internet or connect to each other use network interface cards to do this. Physical address. Suppose we have two computers in our organization, and these two computers must have each other's addresses so that they can talk and send data to each other. One of the tasks of the second layer in the OSI model is to register this physical address, which we call it MAC address. Note that in the future, we will have a video with Mr. Omid in which we will explain the cyber attacks related to each OSI layers. Okay, return to the presentation. MAC stands for Media Access Control. Each network card has a physical address written by the manufacturer. And when two computers in a local network or LAN want to talk to each other, they must have each other's physical address or MAC address. What is the MAC structure? MAC address consists of 48 bits. That means it consists of 48 to 0 and 1 next to each other. And the manufacturer determines the order in which these 0 and 1 are placed next to each other. Computers easily understand this 48 bits combination, but it's difficult for human to name a device according this MAC address pattern. So we use a more understandable pattern for human called hexadecimal. In hexadecimal structure, We separate each 4 bits, and according to its value, each 4 bits take one of the following values. But before that, be sure to learn how to convert binary to hexadecimal for understand better this section. Note that in the hexadecimal, whenever the numerical value of each of the 4 bits equals 10 or greater, we use the desired letters instead of numbers. As you can see in the picture, we use a letter A instead of 10, or we use B instead of 11, C instead of 12, D instead of 13, E instead of 14, and at the last we use F instead of 15. In Microsoft, they show the MAC address in this way. For example, 00-1A-3F-F1-4C-C6. Suppose a computer in my organization and one in our organization established in another country have the same MAC address. In that case, there will be no problem because in the internet network, we specify the destination with the IP address, not the MAC address. But in an internal network within the organization or in a LAN, computers shouldn't have the same MAC address. To prevent the MAC address that two different factories give to their network cards from being the same, a company named IEEE divided the MAC address into two equal parts, and it said that the network card factories must buy the first 24 bits from me. And when it sells the first 24 bits to one factory, it will not give them to another factory. After the first 24 bits of MAC address, we can find out which company this network card is for. But the second 24 bits are chosen by the factories. If you are curious about the MAC address of your network card, in the first step you should open CMD and type get MAC. Or you can enter the list of your network interface cards by entering ncpa.cpl in the run menu and right click on the desired network card and click on status. Then in the open window, click on detail to view the MAC address. And if you are a Linux user, to see your MAC address, open a terminal, then type ifconfig at the command prompt. Your MAC address will be displayed beside the label HWADDR. But MAC address is a layer 2 protocol and we need IP for connecting to the internet. The protocol created so that computers can call each other globally like the internet is called IP, which stands for Internet Protocol. One of the disadvantages of a Mac is that the manufacturer creates it and we can't change it easily. Maybe I need to give my computer an address of my choice. In the third layer of the OSI model, a structure called logical addressing or IP was presented. After the creation of IP, when we work with a computer, whether at the global level or in the level of the organization, I should call the computer's IP. IP structure has 32 bits consisting of 32 0 and 1 next to each other. But because it was difficult to remember and say this pattern, they choose a better way for IP naming called decimal. According to this pattern, they separate every 8 bits and call it an octet. And according to what numbers are included in this octet, which contains of 8, 0, and 1, it can be valued from 0 to 255. Note that dots separate the octets, so the IP address is divided into four parts or four octets with a dot between them. Their minimum value is 0 and their maximum value is 255. For example, 122.89.46.72. Okay, let's talk about four types of IP address. static IP, dynamic IP, APIPO, and loopback IP. Let's start with static IP. When I enter the IP manually in the network card settings, it's called a static IP. To do that, we should type ncpa.cpl in the Run menu. Right-click on desired network interface card and click Properties. In the open window, I should click on IP version 4 and then click on the Properties. And in the open window, click on Use the following IP address. Then I can write my IP address and subnet mask. Use a subnet mask to separate net ID and host ID. For example, in this picture, 169.254 is the net ID and .1.1 is the host ID. The net ID of all devices that are members of a LAN is the same, but each device has its host ID. If a device wants to send a packet to a machine whose net ID is different, a routing operation must be performed, and we use the router for that. So we write the IP address of our router's interface in the default gateway. As shown in this picture, we can set our specific DNS in this window. I spoke about this issue before in DNS video. Okay, what should Linux users do? Let's see this video. To change the IP in Linux, we first enter to its terminal. By typing the ifconfig command, we can see the list of network cards and the IP of each network interface card. As you can see, the name of my interface in my Kali Linux is ET80, and now its IP is 192.168.10.5, and its subnet mask is 255.255.00. If I want to change its IP, I use the following command. First, I enter the sudo command because to change the IP, we have to do it at the administrator level. After that, type ifconfig command and then type the interface's name, which in this example is ET80. After the interface's name, we type the new IP that we want to set for the interface. And after that, we use the subnet mask. We use the netmask command and enter the desired subnet mask and press enter. Then, in the new line, we should enter the password of administrator user. And now my IP has been changed. To make sure that the IP has changed, I type the ifconfig command once more. And as you can see in the future, yes, as you can see in the picture, the IP and subnet mask has changed. But setting a static IP has some weakness. For example, it's possible to set the same IP for two computers due to distraction, which cause an IP conflict error. Dynamic IP. When we put a DHCP server in the organization, the computers go to it and get an IP from it in the same IP range that we have specified for the DHCP server and call it pool. There is no need to enter the IP for each computer manually. We only need to configure the network card setting. To do that, we can go the way of setting a static IP, but in the last step, we should click on Obtain an IP address automatically. As I explained before, we automatically click on the DNS server address to get DNS from our ISP. Okay, here is a step-by-step process of how a computer gets an IP address from DHCP server. At first, DHCP discovered the client, in this case the computer, sends a broadcast message in the network searching for DHCP server. This is done because the client doesn't know where the DHCP server is located. Or in other words, the client doesn't know the IP of the DHCP server. DHCP offer Upon receipt of the discover message, the DHCP server reserves an IP address for the client. It sends a DHCP offer message back to the client, offering this IP address and other network configuration details like the subnet mask, default gateway, lease duration, and something else. DHCP requests. This client message is sent in response to DHCP offer from the server to request the offered address. DHCP request packet has the provided IP address and the client's MAC address, and it's sent to the broadcast address. DHCP acknowledgement. After receiving the DHCP request message from the client, the DHCP server acknowledges the DHCP request and finalizes the IP lease process by sending a DHCP ACK message to the client. The response contains the lease duration and other configuration information. IP lease renewal. When the IP lease expires, the client must request a new IP address from the DHCP server, or the client can request the same address again. The IP lease renewal process is a part of DHCP. When a device joins a network, the DHCP server assigns it a temporary IP address from a pool of available addresses. Along with this IP address, the DHCP server specifies a lease duration, the amount of time this IP address assignment will be valid. Typically, the duration may range from several hours to a few days, depending on the network administrator's preferences. When the lease expires, the device must ask the DHCP server to extend, renew the lease. If we want to assign a specific IP address to a particular device like server, we should be reserving an IP address in the DHCP. This is done to ensure that the device always receives the same IP address and help avoid conflicts that can result if the DHCP server gives the address to another devices on the network. The reservation is made based on the device's MAC address. So when the device makes a DHCP request to the server, it recognizes the MAC address and assigns it the reserved IP address. Automatic Private IP Addressing or APIPA. If the connection between the network card and the DHCP server is interrupted, for example, if the DHCP server fails, the computer automatically gets a temporary IP called APIPA. Still, it constantly checks its connections with the DHCP server so that it goes and gets an IP address from the DHCP server as soon as it's connected. As you can see in the picture, let me zoom in. As you can see in the picture, APIPA is a start from 169.254.0.02, 169.254, 255. Its range of APIPA. Loopback. Loopback IP. A special IP addresses used to test network cards. The loopback address is mainly used to test communication and transmission in a local network card or to test applications in the network. This IP address corresponds to the loopback interface of the network card software, which isn't connected to any hardware and doesn't need to be physically connected to the network. Loopback address is 127.0.0.1. With this IP address, a computer can send a message to itself, which is usually used for network troubleshooting and testing. In other words, loopback is done when one of the host computers sends a packet to itself. Classification. There is a series of standards for giving IP to devices so that we can identify IPs more easily, and it's called classification. To find out which class each IP belongs to, we need to refer to its first octet. If the first octet was between 1 and 126, it's in A class. If the first octet was between 128 and 191, it's in B class. If the first octet was between 192 and 223, it's in C class. And if the first octet was between 224 and 239, it's in D class. And in the last, if the first octet was between 240 and 254, it's in E class. In the real world, we use the first three classes for addressing. It means we use classes A, B, and C because classes D and E are used for searching work in the lab or multicasting. The difference between public IP and private IP. Let's talk about public IP address. This IP address is assigned to a computing device to allow direct access to the internet. A web server, mail server, and any server device directly accessible from the internet are candidates for a public IP address. Private IP address. Private IP address are used for local area networks or LAN such as those within a home, office, or enterprise. These types of IP address provide a way for devices to communicate with a router and the other devices on the private home or business network. Private IP address can be manually or automatically assigned to a network device, but must be unique within its network. The main difference between the two is public IPs are used to identify a computer on the internet, while private IPs are used to distinguish computers on a private network from those on an outside network. Furthermore, public IP must be unique across the entire web, but the private IP must be unique only within its local network. Two computers in two different companies can have the same private IPs. And as you can see in the picture, private IP available in each class is, for example, in class A, private IPs start from 10.0.0.02, 10.255, 255, 255. And in class B, private IPs start from 172.16.0.02, 172.31, 255, 255. And in the class C, private IPs start from 192.168.0.02, 192.168.255, 255. Note that there is no problem if one computer in my company and one computer in another company have the same private IP, but each company must have a unique public IP. Public IP location in an organization's network is usually assigned to the external interface of the router or firewall. It means here in this place, which connects the organization's internal network to the internet. IP version 6. You may have heard the name IP version 6 by now. The IP that we have been talking about so far was IP version 4, which consisted of 32 bytes. It's interesting to know that IP version 4 has ended due to the expansion of the internet because when they were creating the IP protocol, they didn't not think that the internet could become so widespread one day. For this reason, they created IP version 6, which is made of 128 bits. And they claim that there are IP version 6 as many grains of sand on the planet. IP version 4 has numeric dot decimal notation, but IP version 6 has numeric hexadecimal notation. Okay. And IP version 6 look like this. Global routing prefix. This is usually assigned by your ISP. The first 48 bits of the address. It means these three parts of IP version 6 is for global routing prefix. Subnet ID. This occupies the next 16 bits of the address, which is used for defining the network's internal subnet. It means just this part of IP version 6. Interface identifier. The last 64 bits presented the interface identifier normally generated through the MAC address of the network card or assigned by configuration. IP version 6 isn't immune to security threats and has vulnerabilities that attackers can exploit. Here are some common IPv6 attacks. At first, IPv6 routing header attacks. The IPv6 routing header can be exploited by an attacker to obfuscate their location, making it difficult to trace back. Neighbor Discovery Protocol attacks or NDP attacks. NDP has much similar functionality as Address Resolution Protocol or ARP in IP version 4 and is susceptible to similar attacks. For example, neighbor advertisements spoofing, neighbor solicitation spoofing, and router advertisement spoofing. ICMP version 6 attack or Internet Control Message Protocol version 6 attacks. ICMP version 6 is integral to IP version 6 operations but can be a source of DOS attacks. This can be used to perform malicious activities like DDoS attacks. IP version 6 tunneling attacks. IP version 6 data can tunnel through IP version 4, which can be a threat if the data contains malicious code, as security devices might not inspect tunnel traffic. Before that, we enter the IP spoofing section. Let's review useful commands about Mac and IP in Windows and Linux. In Windows, we have these commands. At first, ipconfig. It's one of the most frequently used command line tools that allow the user to see all the TCP/IP related information, such as IP address, MAC address, DNS, and something else. You can write ipconfig in the command prompt to display the IP configuration for all network interfaces on your machine. Get Mac. This command is helpful to know your PC or laptop's physical address or MAC address. When you execute this command in the command prompt, it lists the physical addresses of network adapters installed on your PC or laptop. NSLOOKUP. This command line tool finds IP addresses of a particular website or host. You can use this tool by typing nslookup, then write your website in the command prompt. Trace routes. This command allows you to view the route packets take across a network to reach their destination. The command can be initiated by typing TRACERT, then type destination address in the command prompt. NetStat. It's a command line tool that displays active TCP connections ports on which the computer is listening, Ethernet statistic, the IP routing table, and something else. Just write netstat in the command prompt. ARP. This utility allows user to manipulate the address resolution protocol cache or ARP cache. You can add, delete, or display MAC address entires for a certain IP address using ARP command followed by certain flags. Ping. This command tests the network connection between two systems. You can use ping followed by the IP or website address. And if you are a Linux user, we use IPADDR show command. This command displays all network interfaces and the current network configuration. IP route show. This command is used to show the routing table in Linux system. If config. If config. This command can be used to display, configure, enable, or disable network interfaces. Netstat-rn. This command shows a routing table for all IP addresses bound to the server. Trace routes. This command lets you trace an IP packet's route to its destination. Ping helps you to check if the host is reachable. Spoofing. A spoof in the word means forgery. It means presenting oneself instead of
Excuse me,
someone
Amir.
else.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I
What
can.
is your current slide number?
My it's 62.
62. Okay, back to 57.
Okay, let me. You miss here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. IP route show the comment is not true. The comment is true or not?
I think I can't find a mistake in the command. I don't know. Can you help me?
Could you search in the internet because you should IP route show uh, at the end of route we have route.
Ah, okay, I understand. Okay, sorry.
What
It
what's
was
your request? Your mm, let me check something.
okay.
The result is true. Did you type this command on your system or not?
Uh, I can't in this moment try this, but Mister, I always use the tab button and it's autocomplete. I
Okay, but
think.
I don't know what is the problem because you should type IP route show, IPROUTE show. Okay.
Okay. After this presentation, I check it, and
Okay. Okay, go
okay,
ahead. Go ahead. Thank you.
okay, okay. Spoofing. A spoof in the word means forgery. It means presenting oneself instead of someone else and deceiving the victim. Spoofing can be very broad. For example, in the previous video, we talked about phishing and email spoofing, website spoofing, and text message spoofing. But there are some other types of spoofing like caller ID spoofing, GPS spoofing, DNS spoofing, and something else. In DNS presentation, I said DNS converts name to IP and vice versa. And DNS spoofing, also known as DNS cache poisoning, is a type of cyber attack where a hacker intercepts and alters communication between user and DNS server, typically with the intent to divert traffic to a fake website. This is done in an effort to steal sensitive information or spread malware. It's called DNS spoofing because the attacker spoofs or imitates the genuine DNS server. Today, I want to talk about IP spoofing. IP address makes you unique among millions of other devices online. But this identity can be stolen and abused through a technique called IP spoofing. The data we send over the internet is called packets. Each packet, in addition to the main part of the data, has other parts that differ according to the type of packet and communication protocol. This part in packet is called header. One of the things in the header is the address of uh, is the address of the person who sent the message and also the address of the person who is recipient of the message. These are respectively called source IP and destination IP. Just like a mailbox has the details of the sender and destination. During IP spoofing, a hacker replaces the IP addresses in a packet to mask the source of the data. It means the attacker puts a fake address instead of the genuine one. Then an attacker can fool your computer into thinking the packets are coming from a trusted source and infect you with malware. Or he can send millions of requests for DOS attack, but with fake IP addresses so that we can't find their identity and source. Finally, a hacker can use IP spoofing to infiltrate communication between you and another person or website. So they can monitor your online activity and even extract your password without you ever knowing. IP spoofing in DDoS attack. IP spoofing is used for two reasons in DDoS attack. At first, to mask botnet device locations, and in the second, to stage a reflected assault. Masking botnet devices locations. A botnet is a cluster of malware infected devices remotely controlled by prepaid perpetrators without the knowledge of their owners. They can be instructed to collectively access a given domain or server, providing preparators with the computing and networking resources to generate high traffic floods. Such floods enable botnet operators to mask out their targets' resources capacity, resulting in server downtime and network saturation. Botnets are typically comprised of either random, geographically disparate devices or computers belonging to the same compromised network. By using spoofed IP addresses to mask the true identities of their botnet devices, uh, perpetrators aim to one, avoid discovery and implication by law enforcement and forensic cyber investigators. Two, prevent targets from notifying device owners about an attack in which they are unwittingly participating. And three, bypass security scripts, devices and services that attempt to mitigate DDoS attacks through the blacklisting of attacking IP addresses. Reflected DDoS. A reflected DDoS attack uses IP spoofing to generate fake requests, ostensibly on behalf of a target, to elicit responses from underprotected intermediary servers. The perpetrator's goal is to amplify their traffic output by triggering large responses from much smaller requests. We also talk about this attack in DNS video. IP spoofing for man in the middle attack or MITM attack. Here, an attacker could use IP spoofing as a method to create a man in the middle attack. For example, the attacker could use IP spoofing to trick a user's computer into thinking it's communicating with a trusted entity like a bank and routes the user's connection through the attacker's machine. That's the man in the middle part. The attacker could then intercept, rely, and possibly alter the communication between the user and the bank. all while the user thinks they are communicating directly with the bank. In this way, the attacker could potentially steal sensitive information such as login credentials or credit card details. The key to preventing such attacks lies on securing communication with encryption and validation checks like HTTPS and SSL or TLS certificates, which verify the identity of the entities involved in a digital transmission, making it much more difficult for an attacker to impersonate a trusted entity. IP spoofing for blind attack. A blind attack is a type of cyber attack where the attacker sends a malicious or harmful packets or data to a network or system without receiving any response from or feedback. Attackers can use IP spoofing to send messages to a computer with an IP address that implies the message is coming from a trusted source. It's so funny, I think. IP address spoofing in security research. In security research, IP data derived from network layer assaults is often used to identify the country of origin of attacker resources. IP address spoofing, however, makes this data unreliable as both the IP address and geolocation of malicious traffic is masked. When reading reports relying solely on network IP data, it's necessary to be aware of these limitations. For example, a report by a mitigation provider that doesn't protect against application layer attacks can't be relied on to provide accurate locations of botnet devices. As a result, any substantial research into botnet countries of origin can only be based on application layer attack data. Match spoofing. MAC spoofing works by modifying the media access control address of a network device to impersonate another devices on the network. The MAC address is a unique identifier assigned to network interfaces for communication on the physical network segment. When a device wants to communicate on a network, it uses its MAC address to identify itself to other devices. By changing its MAC address to match that of another device, a malicious actor can trick the network into accepting the spoof device as the legitimate one. This can be used to bypass network security measures that rely on MAC addresses for authentication, such as MAC address filtering. It can also allow an attacker to intercept network traffic means for the legitimate device and conduct man-in-the-middle attacks or gain unauthorized access to the network. MAC spoofing can be achieved through various means, including using software tools or to modify the MAC address of a network interface or by exploiting vulnerabilities in network protocols to manipulate the MAC address information. It's important to note that while MAC address can be used for legitimate purposes, such as troubleshooting or testing network configurations, it's often associated with unauthorized and malicious activity. ARP spoofing or address resolution protocol spoofing. Okay, as we say, ARP stands for Address Resolution Protocol. It's a protocol used in local area network to find MAC address of devices that we know its IP. When device A, for example, want to send a data to device B, we should type IP of device B, but we don't have MAC of device B. So device A broadcasts a message to all the network and asks what is the MAC address of a device with this specific IP address. Then device B get the message and see the message is for itself. So answer to message and say, hello, it's my MAC address. Here you are. ARP spoofing or ARP poisoning. ARP spoofing happens when attacker sends a falsified ARP message over a local area network. This links the attacker's MAC with the IP address of legitimate computer or server on the network. Once the attacker's MAC address is connected to an authentic IP address, the attacker can be receiving any data that is intended for that IP address, as you can see in this picture. Preventing of IP spoofing and MAC spoofing. Implementing anti-spoofing filters. Network administrators can implement anti-spoofing filters at the network perimeter to block traffic with spoofed source IP addresses. Implement strong authentication and access controls. Utilize strong, strong authentication methods and access controls to prevent unauthorized access to network resources, reducing the risk of IP spoofing attacks. Monitor traffic, monitor network traffic. Regularly monitor network traffic for any signs of IP spoofing and take action to block or mitigate any suspicious activity. Keep software and systems updated. Ensure that all network devices and software are regularly updated with the latest security patches to prevent vulnerabilities that could be exploited in IP spoofing attacks. Educate users. Educate employees and users about the risk of IP spoofing and the importance of following security best practices to prevent such attacks. Use MAC filtering. Most routers have a feature called MAC filtering that allow you to specify which devices are allowed to connect to your network. By adding the MAC addresses of your trusted devices to the filter, you can prevent unauthorized devices from connecting to your network. Enable port security. Port security is a feature that allows you to limit the number of MAC addresses that can connect to a specific switch port. By enabling this feature, you can prevent unauthorized devices from connecting to your network through that port. Use Network Access Control or NAC. NAC is a security solution that checks the security posture of devices before allowing them to connect to a network. By implementing NAC, you can ensure that only authorized and secure devices are allowed to connect to your network. Use encryption. Encryption is a technique that protects the data transmitted over a network from being intercepted and read by unauthorized user. By using encryption, you can prevent attackers from using MAC spoofing to intercept and read your network traffic. Use intrusion detection systems or IDS. IDS is a security solution that detects and alerts you to any suspicious activity on your network. By using IDS, you can detect and prevent MAC spoofing attacks before they cause any damage. Conclusion. In conclusion, IP spoofing is a serious cybersecurity threat where an attacker impersonates another devices by falsifying data to hide their identity or impersonate another computing system. This technique is commonly used in a variety of attacks, such as man in the middle, denial of service, and session hijacking. The evolving nature of networks with the Adoption of IP version 6 has introduced both new challenges and capabilities in mitigating IP spoofing. The use of security measures such as packet filtering, IPsec, and proper network designs are critical and defining against such attacks. Vigilance and continuous improvements in security systems, along with user education, are key to ensuring the integrity of computer networks against spoofing and other cybersecurity threats. Okay, I finish my presentation and thank you, Mr. Omid, to give me your time.
Okay, perfect, Amir, perfect. It's good.
Thank you.
Okay, I have 15 questions or more. It depends of you, on you.
Okay.
Amir, see you after 15 minutes. We're going to rest right now. After that, I will see you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hello again. We're back with 15 question. Here are the top 15 question with the answers related to cybersecurity for beginners to advanced about MAC, type of IP addresses, DHCP, IP spoofing, and MAC spoofing. Okay, Amir. Uh, we start question for beginners. The first question is, what is the difference between MAC and IP address?
Okay. Mr. Omid, MAC address is a protocol in layer 2 of the OSI, but IP address is a protocol in layer 3 of the OSI. And MAC address consists of 48 bits, but IP address consists of 32 bits. And if we want to show the MAC address, we use alpha numerical notation. But for IP address, we use we use a numerical decimal notation. And if we want to speak about it more technically, we use MAC address in a lab to find our destination computer in a same area network, but IP used for internet and globally. Or I means that we use IP to connect with computers outside of our lab.
Okay, but your first answer is true, but in your local network, what about local network? We use IP addresses for local network.
Yes, yes, of course
Okay,
we use.
okay. Amir, let me complete your second
Okay,
answer.
okay,
It's
I hear
better to
you.
recap it. MAC addresses are unique identifiers for a network devices. Okay,
Uh-huh.
such as a
Okay,
router manufacturer that you explain it in your presentation. While IP addresses are logical addresses allowing devices to communicate on a network or public network, okay,
okay,
worldwide.
okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes, it's
okay. Question two: what is DHCP and what is its purpose?
okay. As I say in my presentation, in four types of IP, we have a static IP and dynamic IP. And if we don't want manually enter IP, and for example, sit behind every computers in our organization and enter the IP manually, we bring a DHCP server, and the DHCP server automatically give an IP to
Okay,
my
okay, it's
computer.
true. Okay, it's true. Do you know what is the meaning of DHCP?
D, I forgot it. Sorry.
No problem. Dynamic host configuration protocol.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Sorry,
but
I
your
forgot.
answer is true. Question three. What is
Okay,
IP spoofing and how does it work?
okay. IP spoofing means an attacker mask the source IP of a packet, and it's changed the source IP of a packet, and it's usually
No, wait, sorry. We talk about IP spoofing. We didn't talk about packet manipulation or something like that. We talk just about IP spoofing. What is IP spoofing and how does it work? You talk
okay.
about packet.
Can you explain about this question? Because
IP spoofing. What is the IP spoofing?
okay, what IP spoofing means? We change and
Uh-huh.
use forgery IP
Mm-hmm.
instead of our source IP. I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yes.
Can you give me an example? It's advanced
Uh,
question. It's for advanced question, not for beginners. But could you give me a good example for IP spoofing?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
For example, in DNS reflection implication attacks, uh,
No, do you talk
uh,
about DNS? I talk about SIP spoofing.
okay, in a DDoS reflection attacks, am I true?
No, DDoS is not true. Okay, the best answer. Let me
Yes.
let me talk about IP spoofing. IP
Okay.
spoofing uh, introduce simply. IP spoofing is a technique that allows an attacker to change their IP address to make it appears as if they are someone else. For example, in your firewall device, you allow your public IP address. For example, your public IP address is 1.1.1. Okay, so
Okay.
you want to connect to your own firewall in the office or something like that to connect to remote desktop or a local network to access local network. So you in your firewall add these rules in your source. For example, your source address is 1 to 1.1.1.1 and your destination is your local network. Okay,
Okay.
so your outside computer, in your public network area, that your IP address is 1.1.1 can access to the your local network. So the attacker use IP spoofing technique to change their IP address to make it appears as if they are someone else like 1.1.1. But the attacker public IP is totally different. Maybe 8.8.8.8. Okay.
Okay.
I use the Google IP address and a Cloudflare IP address because we don't want to call any public IP address because it is illegal. Okay, so
Okay.
it is a IP spoofing. Did you understand?
Yes, of
It
course.
means that you allow in your firewall just 1.1.1.1 IP address can allow access to my local computer or anything. Okay, the
I
attackers,
understand it completely.
yeah, the attackers change on IP address by IP spoofing. That's it. It's an
Okay.
advanced question. Okay, number four. What is MAC spoofing and how does it work?
Okay, MAC spoofing means that the attacker use in use another or another MAC address that exists in the network. For example, there is a there is a computer in a specific network with a specific IP and a specific MAC address, and the attacker isn't legitimate device on that network, so
No,
he
no, no,
can
no, 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 no. Sorry. Part of your question answer is true, but part of them it's not.
okay.
Mac spoofing. Uh, it's better to say that Mac spoofing is a technique like IP spoofing is a technique that allows an attacker to change their MAC address to make it appears as if they are trusted device on a network. Okay,
Okay, okay, okay,
Mac spoofing for it's advanced. Okay, for
okay.
advanced. A
Yes.
Mac ad spoofing, also known as a MAC address spoofing, is the uh, practice of changing or impersonating the media access control or MAC address of a network interface. I want to make an example for you to help illustrate how MAC spoofing works. Let's say there are two devices connected to a local network, a router with the MAC address, for example, AABBCC112233, and a
Okay,
laptop with the MAC address with 112233AABBCC. The laptops the laptop want to send a network request to the router, so it constructs a packet containing its MAC address. What is the MAC address? 112233AABBCC. In the source MAC address field and the router's MAC address, router MAC address is AABBCC112233. In the destination MAC address field, the packet is sent out onto the local network. However, the laptop decides to perform MAC spoofing and change its MAC address to AABBCC112233, which is the MAC address of the router. Now, when the laptop wants to send a network request, it constructs a packet with the spoof MAC address AABBCC112233 in the source MAC address field, and the actual MAC address of the router AABBCC112233 in the destination MAC address field. Next, the packet is sent out onto the local network, appearing as if it originated from the router itself. Other device on the network receive the packet and see the source MAC address as AABBCC112233, assuming it is from the router. But I want to talk about another example. For example,
okay,
imagine that you have a router and you set a MAC address policy. I mean that MAC filtering. So how can you bypass it? With a Linux command, when we talk about that, how to access Wi-Fi, how to hack Wi-Fi. It's in ethical hacker. Uh, so for your, you can't with some command in Linux. We talk about that in the future. We will talk. You scan the access point that who connect to the access point, then you find the MAC address of the client that connected to the access point. So you change your MAC address and connect easily to the access point. Did you got it?
Yes, of course.
Okay, Mac spoofing can be used for various purposes, such as bypassing network filtering or distinguishing and identifying on the network. However, it is important to note that Mac spoofing is typically used by individuals with malicious intent and is often considered a security vulnerability. It is
Okay.
like IP spoofing, not totally different.
Okay.
Okay, the question five. What are some of the risks of IP and MAC spoofing? If you,
You means why attacker use these two techniques?
mm, no, I want to know some of the risk. Some of the risk. Let's talk about example.
Okay, okay.
Okay. It's better to I answer this question. IP
Yes,
and MAC
thank you.
spoofing can be used to launch various attacks, such as a man-in-the-middle attacks and DDoS, denial of service attacks. You talk about that.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Next, we're going to intermediate questions. Question for intermediate learners. How can you protect against IP and MAC spoofing?
Okay. Excuse me, it's number six question or it's still number
Oh,
five?
I told that. I said that. Questions for intermediate learners. Question one.
Ah,
How can
okay.
you protect against IP and MAC spoofing?
Okay, okay, understand. For IP spoofing, for example, we could implement anti-spoofing, or we could update our software regularly because in each update, usually developers put some security patches that reduce the vulnerabilities. Or, for example, we could use IDS, or we should monitor network traffics, because in the monitor network traffics, if we have if we have untrusted activities, we can see it and block the action. And for example, we could use encryption, for example, VPN, because when we use because we use encryption methods, our data isn't clear. And if the
Okay,
attacker,
okay, thank you. Your first part of your question answer is true, but the
okay,
second one is for our second question, but totally is true. There are
okay,
several ways to protect against IP and MAC spoofing, such as
yeah,
using strong passwords, enabling firewalls, and using intrusion detection and preventing system or other security mechanism such as zero trust or VPN or multi-factor authentication or something like that.
yes.
Okay, number two, what are some of the tools and techniques used to detect and prevent IP and MAC spoofing?
Okay, as I said, for example, IDS uh, and the VPNs, because in VPNs they encryption our data, and I think firewalls and some tools. I think VPN, IDS, firewalls, and
Okay, there are several tools, as you know, and techniques used to detect
yes,
and prevent IP and MAC spoofing, such as a network traffic analysis, MAC address
yes,
filtering, and IP address blacklisting.
Uh-huh.
But
Okay.
in the future, we're going deep in this field because it's totally different when you want to implement for security, for enhanced security, and protect your network against IP and MAC spoofing, or etc. Okay, number
Okay.
four. What are some of the future trends in IP and MAC spoofing?
Excuse me, number four or number three?
Is it true? Yeah, yeah. Number three. What are,
Sorry.
excuse me, what are some legal and ethical considerations for using IP and MAC spoofing?
Okay. For example, we use MAC spoofing for troubleshooting and test our network, and IP spoofing too.
Uh, could you explain more or no?
Explain if I want to explain it deeply. I should
Okay.
think about it. I think it's better you answer this question.
Okay, there are
Sorry.
several legal and ethical considerations of using IP and MAC spoofing, such as the potential for unauthorized access, data theft, and denial of service attacks.
Mhm.
In the future, we're going deep dive into this field. Uh,
Okay.
Next question, question four. What are some of the future trends in IP and MAC spoofing?
Future, excuse me, what's the meaning of future trends? I can't understand.
Uh, but the answer, I think you understand. There are
Okay.
many future trends in IP and MAC spoofing, such as the developing new attack techniques and increasing of malware or something like that.
Okay.
Did you understand or not?
Yes, yes, I understand this.
Okay. Mm, Question five. How
Yes.
can you stay up to date on the latest threats and vulnerabilities related to IP and MAC spoofing?
Okay, I think you mean the human as a human or as a computer?
No, human can protect you as a device
No, as a
s-
device. We-
or human, both of them.
okay, if the question was about
Okay,
human,
okay. Let's the human is better. Okay, talk about human
okay, the
as a
human.
person. For sorry if I imagine that you are SOC staff
Okay,
and talk about that. How can
okay.
update yourself?
Okay, for example, we could regularly check a website whose tells or writes about vulnerabilities and zero days attacks,
Mhm.
and we should check and monitor traffic regularly to understand that actions.
Okay, but for updating yourself,
I think I should read websites that
okay,
tell or write.
reading security news
Yes,
for
of
top
course.
trends. Okay, for top trends, you can read security news. It's
Yes, yes,
better to
I
you.
forgot.
Okay,
Yes, I think.
okay. Let me to talk about that and
Okay,
uh, joining to security conferences and participating in online security forums. Uh,
yeah.
it's helped you to let you up to date. You can stay up to date on the latest threats and vulnerabilities related to IP and MAC spoofing.
Okay. You
Okay,
said security, Francis. I don't listen it good.
security conferences.
Ah, conferences. Okay, I know that.
Okay, question for advanced learners. The question one is, what are some of the advanced attack techniques that use IP and MAC spoofing?
Okay, I think if attacker wants do DDoS attacks and man in the middle attacks,
Yes,
and
it's true. Mhm.
it's not true.
Yeah, it's true.
Ah, okay.
It's session
Uh,
hijacking.
yes, session hijacking, man in the
Okay,
middle,
that's it.
and
That's it.
some blind attack.
Okay, that's it. Now, question two. How can you reverse engineering IP and MAC spoofing attacks?
Reverse. Sorry, but I don't have any information about
Okay,
reverse engineering.
yes, but one of the technique is a reverse engineering IP and MAC spoofing attacks can be a complex and time-consuming process, but it can be valuable in identifying the source of an attack and developing mitigation strategies. This for
Okay,
advanced, not beginner. Okay.
okay,
Three.
okay.
What are some of the emerging technologies, sorry, that could be used to address the challenges of IP and MAC spoofing? What are some of the emerging technologies that could be used to address the challenges of IP and MAC spoofing?
Okay, I have. I think I don't have enough information
Okay, no
about
problem.
this.
Some of the
Okay.
emerging technologies that could be used to address the challenges of IP address and MAC spoofing include blockchain, network slicing, and artificial intelligence.
Okay.
Please note all of that you didn't know. It's not problem
Yes.
because it's very diverse type of knowledge in IP spoofing and MAC spoofing.
Okay. I know that.
But it's more than the five question. I can generate thousands of questions about uh, MAC spoofing, IP spoofing for advanced learners. Okay,
Yeah.
question four.
Okay.
How can you develop a comprehensive security strategy that includes protection against IP and MAC spoofing?
Okay. It's. I think I need thinking about it. The question.
Okay, a comprehensive security
Yeah.
strategy that includes protection against IP and MAC spoofing should consist of several different layers of security, such as a physical security, network security, and application security. But what is this type of security in physical? How can do in security, physical security? How can we do network security? And what is application security? This is a big question.
Yes, of course.
Okay, question five. How can
Yes.
you educate and train your employees about the risks of IP and MAC spoofing? In your presentation, I remember that you talk about this education. I
Yeah.
made this question by your presentation.
Okay, I think at the first I should tell about a dangerous of IP spoofing. For example, what happened if
Mm.
IP spoofing happens successfully? And
Okay, it's true. You should
yes,
spoofing by providing regular security awareness training. Okay, next.
yes. And in the next, we should we should tell them about notifications of IP spoofing. For example, what's happened in their computer if IP
Mm-hmm.
spoofing happened,
Mm-hmm.
and
Activity.
change message in their computers if the IP spoofing successfully happened.
Uh,
Or for example, it changes that if IP spoofing happened in their computers. So because they should understand the IP spoofing. For example,
uh,
if say their computer at the first they should understand, yes, now IP spoofing happened.
you can, Amir, you can educate and train your employees about
Yes.
the risks of IP and Mac spoofing by providing regular security awareness training,
Yes, yes, of course.
conducting phishing simulations, and encouraging them to report suspicious activity. Because they didn't know any IT knowledge. They didn't have IT knowledge. You should train them. What is IP and Mac spoofing? By
Yeah.
providing regular security awareness training. And then the important is report suspicious activities such as a malicious software or any notification that have a suspicious activity. They should learn and educate and train. Okay.
Yes.
Um, you talk about ideas. Okay. My
Yes.
last question for end of this session is what is the difference between IDS and IPS?
Okay. IDS stand for intrusion detection system, but IPS stand for intrusion prevention system. It means we use IDS next to the firewall, and the IDS just show us the attacks and risk, but IPS try to prevent them and the block the bad actions. But in IPS block the bad actions, but IDS just show us and don't try to block them.
Just
And we
detect.
use
Just detect.
yes,
Okay, let's
yes,
move to
just
better explanation about this. IDS
okay.
and IPS are both network security systems designed to detect and prevent unauthorized or malicious activities within a network. However, they differ in their functionality and the actions they take upon detecting such activities. The difference between IDS intrusion detection system and IPS intrusion prevention system is they have some part in for example, intrusion detection system. We have function detection, alerting, passive system, incident response, and in IPS also we have function, prevention, real-time response, inline development, reduce manual intervention, This part is important. In summary, IDS focuses on detecting and alerting security incidents, while IPS goes a step further by actively preventing or blocking identified threats in real time. IDS is more passive and requires manual intervention for incident response, while IPS is proactive and automated in the approach to network. For example, we have signature based and rule based in IPS. But in next generation in firewall, we have user entity behavior analysis. It means that artificial intelligence monitor each activity by user or network or IP address or device. If it detect any anomaly or suspicious activity, it will be blocked or take an action that manager uh, set up a rule. Okay, Amir.
Okay,
Thank you for your presentation, and audience. Thank you for watching us and here. Please, for more support, please don't forget to subscribe and like or comment. Thank you. Have a nice time.
thank you. Goodbye.
Amir, see you in our next session.
Thank you, Mr. Omid, and thanks for your time. And I want to say a special thanks for your guidance to me to learn cybersecurity in true way.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful day. Bye now.
Thank you.